Next up, we're going to take a closer look at transition and commercialization of your technologies at DARPA. To walk us through how DARPA technologies are commercialized, let's welcome back Jen Thabit. Jen, I hope you got some coffee in that last break, in conversation with DARPA PMs Chris Kent, Tiffany Prest, and Dan Ridge.
Hi, it's me again. Well, I talked a lot about transition and commercialization, and clearly I am pretty monotone and not passionate about things. And so I wanted to try a new session. So you guys are the first audience that we were kind of trying this new session, right? Because we spend a lot of time talking about how to become a performer here. And I spend a little bit of time talking about transition commercialization because that is part of the SBIR and STTR policy directive, right? But transition and commercialization is not just a SBIR STTR thing, right? It really is something that our program managers have to think about throughout their tenure and when they are putting programs together. And so I thought it would be a good idea to kind of close out the afternoon a little bit to talk about transition and commercialization. So I want to kind of begin by defining those core concepts, right? What's the difference between transitioning and commercializing DARPA-funded research? And how do you guys think about that? I didn't say this was going to be easy.
Yeah, gotta warn us. All right. I gotta think about this.
Well, you're in BTO. Maybe we shouldn't start with you. You guys, it's already cloudy with transition, but you do spend a lot of time thinking about it. But let's start down with Chris first, and then we'll work our way down.
Yeah, so I generally think of those differently. For me,
Yes.
Transition, from my perspective, is straight into a DoD need. Commercialization is leveraging the technologies you develop to make money and make a profit-driven business, right? So a lot of the stuff we do, I think I've told a bunch of you, we build demonstrators at DARPA. We pretty much end at demonstration. So usually transition for us is leading to the next. We build X planes, then somebody has to build a Y plane. So the transition is that Y plane being built and then leading on to a commercial business. We are working actively to try and do some different things. So my pulling guard program that we have right now is actually specifically structured to build a whole new market to go with delivering the protection of ships as a commercial market, and structured from day one to go straight to that and sort of skip this. And the transition is actually through commercialization. And we've had a few successes at DARPA from that. So it's a spectrum. Unfortunately, we tend to suffer on transition sometimes. It is probably the thing I think, at least my most painful thoughts about most often. So we'll see. And I'm going to leave that there.
Yeah. Dan, what about you?
So for a lot of us, we hold as the standard, the high standard for transition, that the Department of Defense will create a program of record around our.
Yeah,
I know you disagree.
No, I do, but I think at DARPA it's so much more.
It is so much more. And so I think about that in a couple of different ways. So I'm in the part of the agency where every program manager at the end of the program has a Pelican case with various holes drilled in it and LEDs and wires coming out of it that does the thing. It's the gadget that does the thing. And transition can look like you give that to a guy and he's going to go put it in harm's way and operationally evaluate it and see that it works. And that's what transition can look like. But when we think about the space between there and commercialization, our relationship, we've contracted with perhaps you, with your university or with your firm, but the relationship that we're building in a non-traditional domain is with the team that's actually doing the work. And one of the hardest parts going into commercialization is to try to keep all of the plates spinning adequately well, that in the industry or with our partner, that team is able to continue the work, not simply that performer is able to continue the work. And that's one of the biggest challenges.
Okay, I got my answer now. All right, so you're right. BTO, biology is a unique beast. And so unlike TTO or maybe even MTO, commercialization looks weird for biology when you're not in the medical space. when you're not doing like first in human trials, you're not going through the FDA, like what does it look like to be like BioSqueeze, for example? What does commercialization look like if they had been, an idea at an academic institution? What would that look like? What would transition for that look like, right? So biology is unique and very complicated, I think, for transition. So I actually think about transition and commercialization kind of simultaneously. Transition is a stakeholder, is a US government partner actually using it? But in order for that US government partner to actually physically use it, that has to be commercializable. Somebody has to be making the thing so the government can buy it, right? So generally speaking, with all of my programs, I work in commercialization. I think about scale up. I think about economic viability. And, in one of my programs currently right now, we have our performers, they're making prototypes that they're actually putting into the hands of boots on the ground to go and break the widget. And to say like, yeah, these buttons are too small, works in the lab, but it doesn't work out in the field, or like, that's great, but like, I'm wearing 10 pairs of gloves and I can't hold on to it because it's too small. So anyway, I think for me, transition and commercialization go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And I think that it's integral to have it actually looped into your program and or your idea if you're coming to us with like a seedling or something.
Yeah, I love that. One question, 3 very different answers. And I think the reason for that is there's no straight line to transition and commercialization at DARPA, right? We talk about turning something from a concept into an idea or a provable reality. There's not going to be one way to do it. And Dan, I want to key off on something that you said, right? You said there's lots of challenges with finding the right partners, right? And so from your perspective, like what's the most effective way to support all of these efforts and really help your projects succeed?
So, in picking a partner, I think one of the challenges that we have is within the extended defense enterprise, it's easy to find somebody who values what you're doing, but values it so much and values their association with it that you give that one copy to them and it goes in a hole and it never comes back out. And then you've lost the momentum. And so finding a partner who values it at a lower sensitivity level and will allow it to grow is just as important as getting it directly in front of the first warfighter you meet who's prepared to go use it tomorrow. And that's a constant source of tension. And so I think that we're looking for a space between, avoiding an Enron situation where we create the impression with the rest of our government partners that we're transitioning research into other research organizations. And that can have a lot of perceptive challenges where if I transition a program from my research organization to ONR transitions it to AFRL, and then it comes back to DARPA for a second helping. So to find people who have mission, but who have the space to let it grow and have enough of it to not become captured by a single performer. There's no DARPA program that, if successful, would be monopolized by a single performer. And that's something that we have to think about as well, as creating enough opportunity.
Yeah. Chris, Tiffany, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to say that for me, I think what is so critical about transition is to make sure that your, tech, your prototype or whatever doesn't fall into a deep dark hole and never come out. And the way that I try to think about that is by basically generating like speed dating events where, we have our performers come and they show off their tech or they like do a pitch or whatever. And then we have our transition partners and our stakeholders there. And then because it's built into the program that they need to have this to pass some sort of phase gate, they need to have some sort of partnership, whether it be official or unofficial. There's this pairing, there's this match that happens, right? Like at these demo days, stakeholders come and they say, oh, that's cool tech. Oh, that's cool tech. Oh, and then they talk with the people that are actually making it. And then they're like, I vibe with you. I want to, let's make this real and official. And so then you have the researchers that are excited because they're working with like the person who's really going to use it. And then you have the person who's really going to use it excited because like they have a physical thing that they can use and they're talking with the people who are making it. And so like building that cycle, that feedback cycle of excitement, I think is actually like the most critical piece, because then you can proselytize your tech all you want. I mean, I'm the program manager. I believe in it. But if you get somebody else out in the US government that's like, guys, have you seen this technology? It is awesome. Then that goes way further.
And one thing I think that you're trying to understand as a prospective, proposer, what transition would look like. Sometimes you will see that in the BAA. And part of the decoder ring is to look at how the phases are structured. If you see a phase, that has partner involvement, it's DARPA's attempt to build in transition pathway that allows us to accept funding commitments for partners, the year before they're able to get their own BAA out. So that's a way to understand how some of these work. If you see a final year phase that looks like transition, it may be that that's what we're trying to do, and that we've encoded a program metric that guarantees we haven't achieved the program goals until we have transition.
A couple years ago, nothing we did at DARPA probably would have been considered a transition success, because at that time, transition success was only a program of record. And we don't really have programs of record, right? But what we do is actually, you do. You were one of the few, right? But we do so much more than that. And I think people are starting to take notice that transition and commercialization success is not just programs of record, that it looks like many different things. And I think we see that in the 3 different answers we got. And I'm sure if we asked Shauna and Andy and other Chris what he would think, he would give us different answers too. So to that end, I really wanted to bring this session to bear, because I wanted to talk a little bit about not just transition, but what are some successes that you guys have had. What does that look like? And I'm going to guess we're going to see 3 very different transition successes.
So I've had a lot of transition success. I've spun out a lot of businesses, a lot of companies from the different programs that I've closed out, the different programs that I've started already, and working a lot with our commercial strategies team that helps academics and people that may not be business minded to actually be able to stand up businesses that can achieve commercialization viability. The other thing that I have been very successful in terms of transition is beyond that is, I mentioned previously that I have a program that's focused on rare earth element separation and extraction, and being able to directly have conversations with mining partners and getting the mining partners involved and interested in the tech. That is a transition success. Also national security success. So go BTO. Anyway, so I think that it can look a lot of different ways. And, the last one I'll say is that, one of the programs that I had, we transitioned to Big Navy, an actual, potential program of record, which is like pretty much unheard of from the biology office. But anyway, so it can look, it's a choose your own adventure. And honestly, as a potential performer, like, we're not asking you to come in and have a transition strategy potentially laid out. And even if you see something in the BAA, like, the program manager is not going to leave you high and dry and be like, I don't know, you have to go figure out the ecosystem. Like, we're here to help. Like, that's the whole point. So that's my 2 cents.
Most of my transition is actually directly to service partners, but I can say that, we've been able to do some things that are otherwise you would not have the access, the opportunity to do. We've gone from idea to TRL 9 in the life of a program, and had our performers providing direct operational support on the ground, right? And our service partners are calling them up. And so that is what is building the bonds of trust that will allow that to continue and make sure that the team survives. I wanted to say that there's one other type of commercialization that is almost my favorite, and that we should count as wins, which is you propose to a BAA and you're not selected, or you look at a BAA of ours and you think it's stupid, and that makes you go do something. You say, I'm going to solve that problem anyway. And if you find that you're solving that problem faster than DARPA is getting after it, you could be the reason our program is killed, which means we just commercialized through you.
Well done.
Apparently we take credit for everything. So I've a lot of my programs and a lot of TTO programs are big platform things. They take a little bit longer to gain momentum into transition. Usually the bills start with or finish with a B. So the issue that runs out of that is that it can be hard to build that momentum. But the way you do that is engagement, both industry-wide, showing what the advantage, and then DARPA teaming with your DARPA PMs that allow you to show that operational impact, right? So if you can get that H4 dialed in and actually demonstrate that it's there, building it up, that trust with them. I do have one program now that's going pretty much straight to transition, and will be fielded in under 12 months. Well, all right, under 16 months. We had some delays.
A final thing I wanted to add is that DARPA was born from uncertain times, right? From that 1958 moment. And so uncertain times are always comfortable at DARPA, and uncertain times are some of the best times for transition and commercialization. And so we have to not let them slip by.
Oh, I think that was a perfect way to close out our session. I thank you. I thank my panelists very much. And I hope if one thing you've got out of here is that even though you're thinking about how to become a performer and work with DARPA, we are here thinking about how to help you leave DARPA. And I guess take credit for making a business and killing a program. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.